she-devils and demons, this is Nurse Hatchet. You are listening to the Wolf Pack.
You're listening to Full Spectrum Horror with the horror symbol, Christopher Island, and the King Black Punk, William Patterson.
Wow, that's hot.
Yes, who?
That's an intro.
Yes, it is.
I just spent vacation in the fun hole, and boy, my arm's tired. Hello, everybody. Welcome to, what show is this again? Oh, yeah. Well, you know what it is, Full Spectrum Horror. Hello, everybody. I am Christopher Highland, and welcome to the show. And we have a special guest tonight, but of course, joining me as always is the king of Spider-Punk and horror author extraordinaire, Mr. Eric Morse. William Pattison. Say hello.
Hello! Golden Scares, everybody! Righty, and of course, that was the horror sex symbol, Mr. Christopher Highland, of course.
Yes,
the man
thank you.
that makes ladies swoon. He's like John Belushi in the Blues Brothers. All he has to do is lift those glasses and they swoon.
Come on.
Of course. We know that.
You're exaggerating.
Yeah.
That's a gross exaggeration. Yes.
All right. So, anyways, Mr. Highland, we have, you have got us a guest tonight. So, I mean,
yes, we don't do that often. We don't usually have guests on the show. Usually we just have a usual movie discussion. But whenever we do have a guest, I must say it makes for a lively evening.
Oh, yes, indeed.
So, I don't want to waste any more time. And I certainly won't. So, without further ado, I would like to welcome our special guest to the show, Ms. Kathe Koja. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Why don't you tell us and our listeners basically who you are, how long you've been writing, let's see, what else? I'll start from there.
Okay, that's plenty to start with. Probably the book that your listeners might be most familiar with of mine is The Cipher, which everyone knows and loves, The Fun Hole. So that's probably the book that really got my work noticed and opened the door to the horror community for me. The Cipher was my first novel that came out way back in the day and has had an interesting and continuing life ever since. I was fortunate enough to be part of the original Delibis series, and The Cipher was chosen to inaugurate that horror series, and I got to meet and be label mates with a lot of really astonishingly good writers, and had a really good time playing around in the dark. After that, the novel that followed that was Bad Brains, and then Skin and Strange Angels, and since then I have gone in and out of many genres, and my last book, Christopher Wilde, is a novel about the Elizabethan poet and playwright and spy and all-around great guy, Christopher Marlowe. So I've written about lots of stuff and had a lot of fun doing it. The Marlowe book is my 17th novel, so I have kept myself busy. Yes. So
yeah, it sounds very busy.
Very busy. And I do performance work as well. I work with a rotating ensemble of performers and musicians, and we do immersive events. The last one we did was a Marlowe play set in a punk club called Glitter King, and we had a lot of fun doing that.
Awesome.
So that's what I'm up to.
Yeah, I've noticed. I know a lot of horror authors and that, and they all branch out into different things. Like I have a few that are not only authors but they're actors, or one lady that I know is not only an author, she's a belly dancer as well.
Fun.
Mm-hmm. But, I mean, that's the way with creative people, is that they like to branch out. I mean, I myself, I'm an artist, poet, and writer as well.
Well, there's no need to confine yourself to one discipline if you have the energy and the talent for more. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. And of course, with myself being an artist, it saves on paying for a cover artist, because I can do my own covers.
Well, I think probably one of the things too that people remember the cipher and the other, fabulous and really fine books that came out from the Della Bish years, what the publisher was trying to do, or what the editor, in particular Gene Cavellis, was trying to do, was really broaden the definition, or the published definition, of what people thought horror fiction was about. I don't know if you guys have seen the Grady Hendrix book, Paperbacks from Hell.
Yes, I have that.
Yeah, and Grady has done a really great job with putting together just all kinds of covers, and some of the cover art, talking about cover art, is super extreme and almost comically grotesque, but as a way to kind of give an overview of what kind of work was being done, how it was being presented, and what the general reader thought of what was horror fiction then. And what Abyss was trying to do too was sort of broaden that, or open it up to maybe invite in a reader who maybe wasn't certain, or didn't know if they liked horror, or would be maybe more willing to give it a try, because it was being presented in this kind of new format, in a different, to invite in a different audience, because the loyal audience, the audience who already knew that they liked horror and wanted to read horror novels, were already there and curious and and welcoming to these books by writers they had never heard of.
Nice.
Yeah, I've been going back and forth many times through this book, and it's been quite an education.
Yeah, Grady really did a great job. He has an obvious, affection and interest for the genre. And even though in the interviews and stuff, in the reviews, people will fixate on the covers, but he also is, quite serious about a lot of really good work that was done by the writers. And I think it's introducing people to some books that they might not have known about otherwise. So good for him. He's doing a good job.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of treasure hunting, looking for titles, and as I've mentioned before, I've gotten a lot of books by getting them from the library and via interlibrary loan, and I'm sure a lot of other people will be doing that with out-of-print books that are mentioned in Paperbacks from Hell.
Right, for sure, because a lot of them may or may not have had reissues, or might be difficult to find now. Some of them have ebook components, I would think, at this point, but some of them might not.
Yeah, that is kind of an issue, is that, a lot of times with like some of these cult horror books, they don't get the ebook, or they don't get an audio book on it, and that kind of causes a problem. Most of the time, what I've found is that a lot of the fans, what they'll do is say, like, if there's a really popular cult artist, what they'll do is they'll do their own audio books and they'll put them on like YouTube and that, and that'll really help get the writer out there
And
to a wider audience.
Right. I know, and it is difficult sometimes to track stuff down or to make sure that people are able to find the older books that they're interested in. But because if the desire is there, somebody will find a way to find the material. And I've been really pleased, people who have contacted me because they read the cipher in ebook, or because they had an old copy, or because they're looking to replace their copy and they want to sign one from me. And it's been really fun to see people having fun with the fun hole, because the fun hole is immortal and apparently it will never die. So, which is nice. I'm always pleased to see people discovering that book for the first time.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
good. That's good. There's a lot of out-of-print books that I've been contacting publishers like Valancourt Press to reprint stuff that's been mentioned in Paperbacks from Hell, and I certainly hope they do.
Right. And I think a lot of the books really hold up well and could definitely have a fresh audience again if people, knew that they were out there, or if people were able to get them in an affordable format. I know that the first edition of the cipher is, as they say, at collectible prices, and I'm surprised when I see maybe not surprised, but I'm always, people do let me know when they want to get a first edition, but they can't afford it. And sadly, I don't have any more first editions left, so.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've seen some of my early books and how high they get. I mean, it's like, you have the fans sitting there asking, and it's like, well, all I can do is I can refer you to Amazon and hope that somebody puts out has a slightly beat up copy that you might be able to get for a fair price. But most of these books, after they get out of print, they just shoot up in price. It's like, that all of a sudden a book that originally cost about $4.99 is now $30, $40, $50, $100. It's terrible.
And because especially if somebody wants a first edition, there are only so many of them out there in the world.
Oh yeah, definitely. And in certain cases, the thing is that the reason why they're out of print is because the original publisher went out of business, which a lot of these small, the big publishing houses, they always keep their archives, but the smaller publishing houses, what usually happens is a big publisher will buy them out and they'll add their archive to their own, and what will happen is that those books will be lost in amongst the archive of the bigger publisher, and it's like, you try to, fans try to find out where this book that they want is, what publisher has the rights to it now, and it's like, nope, can't find it.
And some of the writers as well, as I did, got their rights back. So, which is great from the writer's standpoint, because then they, have their material back again.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't realize you got your rights back to.
Oh, I have them all back.
Oh, that's great. So, may I ask what you plan regarding that?
Well,
if
I don't
anything?
know. We get, my agent and I get lots of interest and requests to do a reprint of the cipher, and there are lots of options. So as of now, I don't have any direct plans to bring it back into print, but I'm sure it will be brought into print sooner rather than later.
Maybe in audiobook too?
I would like to see it done as an audiobook. I think you would really want the right reader for a book like this. I mean, you want the right reader, obviously for any book, but
yeah,
I would be very interested to see what an audio version of the cipher would be like.
Yeah.
Not the easiest read, so.
Yeah,
that's
Mr.
true.
Highland
That's true. It's not.
It's a bunch of people to this one organization that actually does audio books from out of print books, and he's been really sending authors over to them because they do such wonderful work. Remember that group there, Mr. Highland?
Which group? You're gonna have to remind me. Be more specific.
God, I can't remember the name of it, but it was ones that you tried to send me over to them in regard to the Camp
wait a minute.
novel.
Is that that YouTube channel not paperbacks? Hell, what am I saying? Audiobooks for the Damned. Is that it?
Yes, that's it. Audiobooks for the Damned.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've done quite a few books.
Yeah, but they're focused on out of print novelizations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, remember?
Okay, yeah. Well, I could actually I can't remember. What's it been? Almost a year and a half since you mentioned that.
I guess.
Yeah, something like that. And I'm getting old, and the old mind isn't quite as sharp.
I know. I wanted to ask you, where did you get your idea for writing the cipher?
Well, pretty much everything that I do comes from the books always come from a character. They start with a character, and Nicholas was the person that I saw in my mind's eye, and this guy who is not even down and out. He really is a cipher. There's just not a lot going on with him on the surface, but I knew there was more to him, and I knew that something was about to happen. And once I saw Nakoda in my mind, then I knew it's like, okay, these two are like fire and gasoline together, and something was going to happen. And where the idea of the fun hole itself came from, that it's not an original concept. I think that idea of this emptiness or this sort of devouring nothingness is a very old human fear. It's the fear of the dark. It's the fear of what lurks right beyond the firelight, out there where the great beasts are, and the end of the earth and all that stuff. What I hoped to have done with that, what I hope that I did do with it, was make that fear very local and particular to one person and one group of friends and one, shitty little apartment, and to show that this really big thing is at the heart of maybe everything that we're afraid of. And it's a very particular fear as well as a very universal one, because it's really the unknown. I mean, it's the absolute unknown. and we're all kind of afraid of that.
Yeah. See, reading the book, I've thought of the fun hole as a gateway to hell. I mean, other people might think otherwise, but that's just how I interpreted it.
And it's real. I mean, that's what's great about it too, is that a concept like that can. I mean, I was contacted by a reader who said, I don't know what it is, but after I finish the cipher, I'm afraid of all my kitchen cabinets, and I don't like to open them when I'm in the kitchen alone at night. That's fabulous. It's wherever that particular fear hits you, or wherever it lives in you, it's kind of a jumping off place, or a jumping in place, I guess, for the fun hole. Everybody has one, right? Everybody has that place where the fear kind of lives. And I mean, for Nicholas, it was a palpable thing and a hole in the middle of the floor. And for the rest of us, hopefully it's not quite that concrete, but it's still there. And for that person, it was in the kitchen cabinets. Don't ask me why.
And
Yeah,
I like that there was no explanation as to how it got there. It was just there.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I don't know that even if there was an explanation, which I don't have one, by the way. I have no clue how this thing got there. I don't think it would be satisfying for the reader, and I don't know that would have made any difference in the story anyway. I mean, it was too late. It was already there. And when you put these two volatile people in a room with something as fatal as a fun hole, something bad was bound to happen. Even if it was satisfactorily explained, that wouldn't have been good enough for any of them. And the shit was still going to hit the fan. So, but
I was telling. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, the explanation. I mean, people have contacted me through the years and have their own theories or have their own explanations of where this thing came from or what it is or what it could do. And again, it's really varied, and it's really interesting to see the theories that people have had. And what a negative space like that could mean. I mean, anything from, a black hole or a wormhole or the gateway to hell or all kinds of things. So and not knowing has been the most entertaining for me, because I can honestly say I don't have a clue, but maybe you're right. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
Yeah. I was saying to my co-host when I read this book, I said to him that it has a very David Cronenberg feel to it. I don't know if anyone's ever said that to you, but it just reminds me of his work. And speaking of which, not just of his work, but it reminded me personally of the movie The Fly, the remake.
Because it's so icky? Because of, all the physical ickiness in it?
Not just that, because of the main character's transformation.
See, it lends itself to all kinds of points of congruence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's one of the things that horror fiction or horror films can do really well, is give us a place, to put our darkness or to find our darkness or to handle darkness in a way that it might not be safe, but you get enough distance to be able to get a good look at what might be scaring you or what might be troubling or disturbing. Or one of the things people have said as well about the Cypher is that there aren't a lot of characters to root for, but you sort of care about them all. I mean, you do want to know what happens to them, even though they're certainly not traditionally attractive characters in any way.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, that's usually the best ones because it's the imperfections of the characters that resonate the most because you can associate with them through their imperfections.
Sure, and one of the things that I feel is truest about the whole idea of the fun hole, or the whole idea of these people, orbiting this thing that they have no idea what it is or what it can do. That's kind of the human condition. I mean, we're constantly fooling with things that we really have no idea what they can do, and they're sort of constantly blowing up in our faces. And we're kind of a slow-learning species. I know that if my cat gets freaked out by something, he doesn't spend a lot of time trying to make it work, right? He's like, okay, that thing was scary. I don't want anything to do with it. I'm going to go sit on the other side of the room. But I suppose if you did that, you wouldn't have any fiction at all. So.
Yeah. Usually, especially in horror, it's people doing the wrong thing, or doing the most. Instead of doing the wisest thing, they do the stupidest thing. I've seen a lot of comedy stuff. There was like this commercial a few years ago where these teenagers were running away from this serial killer, and they go and they run into the barn, and the barn is full of all these bladed instruments.
Right.
And they go, oh, where should we go? Oh, the car's out there. It's running. Why don't we go there? No, we can't go there. We got to go to the cemetery.
Yeah. Quick, let's run. Let's don't take the car, right? Let's just run through the dark.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like in every slasher film. Oh well, we've got a killer around here. Let's separate.
I know. I'll go look in the dark. You let me know. And some of that we do as a species. We do dumb and useless things sometimes, but there are times when, if it's too egregious in a book or a film, it kind of takes you out of it, because it's so. There's a character in the Cypher who just leaves, and I've always loved her for that, because she says, no, this is too weird for me. I'm out of here. And she leaves, and that's it. We don't see her anymore. She never comes back, because she's smart, and she gets out.
Yeah.
And so she survives the action because she's just not there. And it takes something out of her to do that, because she doesn't want to leave her boyfriend, but she makes the value judgment and says, you know what, these people are going straight down here, and I really don't want to do that. So I'm out of here.
Yeah, that tends to not happen in horror stories.
Yeah, I mean, you don't. Also, something I've noticed, especially in horror movies, is they don't take the time to actually stop and think about things. They do everything, at the spur of the moment. Oh, what are we going to do? Oh, we're going to go over here. Oh, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. They don't sit there. I think there's only been about 3 movies that I've seen where they actually stop and think and rationalize. And that was the one that comes to mind all the time that I just appreciate is From Dusk Till Dawn. When they're in the stripper bar, they find out that it's vampires, and they're stuck in that back area. And rather than just panicking and stuff, rather than the one brother, he sits there and he goes, "Okay, stop. We're going to talk about this. We're dealing with vampires. I don't believe in vampires, but from everything I've seen, we're dealing with vampires. So we need to figure out what we can do to fight vampires." And that is just awesome. And I kind of do that myself in my own writing, because I get so tired of the typical slasher characters and how they handle things. Because the problem is I went to school with those type of people, and I know how they are. Unfortunately, it's not so far from the truth, and I kind of like people who are a little bit smarter than that.
And what's interesting about all horror fiction is you get to see people when they're confronted with extremes. And what do we do when we're shaken out of our normal life, our daily life, and we're confronted by the vampire or the monster or the unknowable hole in the floor or whatever? It gives you insight into the human brain and the human condition at places of extremity.
Oh yeah. I mean, the thing is, in those kind of situations, you really get to see who the person really is underneath the mask. Because you can have like say a jock who's there, he's Mr. Macho and stuff and that, but you get him in a situation like that, he turns into a raging coward. Whereas you have the geek guy who is the quiet one, and he turns out to be the more heroic of the group. He's the one who actually uses his wits and stuff, and that. It's always interesting, when you're dealing with characters, to do a switch around. I remember I was working with a screenwriter in England on a slasher film. It was called Sparrow. I don't know if the film actually has come out yet, but I actually, he gave me a whole section of the film to do rewrites on because he was having trouble with it. And I switched off. I switched the person that he wanted to be the final girl. I switched her off with the emo, morose girl, and she ended up being the one that ends up surviving to the end of the story, whereas the other girl, she decides that she actually, rather than playing the usual victim role, she actually confronts the killer and fights him and ends up getting killed herself, protecting this other girl. So really a difference, between having, the blonde princess, running away and tripping and all that stuff, where she actually turned and faced this thing that she was afraid of. That, that's something. unfortunately,
and that's probably another way that horror fiction can be helpful too, in that it does give us a chance to, face, if as much as we want to, face whatever it is that's scary, face whatever it is that's disturbing or troubling, and a way to kind of handle it with fictional gloves, right? To handle it without having it happen in real life, but to get a chance to experience it and see, what would we do? What would it be like? How would this feel?
yeah, exactly. And it's interesting. I mean, for me, in regard to writing, I absolutely love writing horror, and that plus science fiction is my genre. So that's where my love is. But in regards to characters and stuff, it's especially when you're writing a book, you can flush out characters a lot better than, say, like if you're writing a screenplay, because you don't have the ability to get into the person's head as much as when you're writing. And in a book, oh my God, you can really really get into a person's head. And the more you develop a character, the more the audience can relate to them, and they it's that little bit of fairy dust on there, for the writer, between the writer and the reader, in that we kind of put them into the character's body and have them see out of the character's eyes and the character's experiences.
Sure, it's certainly a way to open yourself up to experiences that probably in real life you might not ever want to have. But that's the power of story, right?
Oh yeah, and I can just imagine when you were writing the cipher, I bet you had some very uncomfortable evenings, when the story you were writing kind of resonated back on you after you left for the day.
Well, I remember working on the cipher, and at the time, my son was very little, and I had very limited writing time, and so I didn't have, which was great because it was a great discipline, and I would put him to bed, and then I had maybe a couple hours to work every day, and it just kind of forces you to get on with it. You don't have a lot of time to wait for the muse to come and sit on your shoulder. You have to get to work. And that was great because and the story itself is very propulsive. So it had its own momentum, and it once it was started, it really got going. So yeah, I don't remember, all I remember is working on it as much as I could when I could, and being really pleased knowing it was done. And then being very pleased to find out that it was going to be, picked up for this brand new horror line and was going to lead the line off. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I know when I was writing my Camp Crystal Lake novels, the thing was that, oh my God, I would end up having nightmares myself. Because I got so into the story and that, and in my situation, I was the hired writer, and they had me writing 4 books in 1 year. So I didn't have, I had to really push myself, and it would be like, okay, I've written all day, I want to go to sleep, but I had my mind so engulfed in that world that it resonated into my dreams and stuff, and I was constantly having nightmares where I was being chased, or, you know, it actually helped me in some ways when I was actually writing, because I was, you know, at one point I was just really on edge. I'd wake up and I'd go, oh God, I'm gonna just write because I can't sleep, and I would have that edge, and it would help me with the writing because of lack of sleep.
Well, that will definitely focus your attention for sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, you know, when you're having nightmares every night and stuff. I mean, you know, with me, you know, as you were saying about the dark, I have fear of the dark. So I mean, I usually even sleep with a light on because I can't sleep in the dark.
Right. Yeah, and that's a very potent fear too. That's probably our first fear when we're little, and the same reason you don't want to walk into a completely dark space, which is quite sensible. You have no idea what's there. You don't know if there's a floor there, or, you know, a prehistoric beast or whatever. You literally don't know. So and we're predators. We depend on our eyes first. So when you take that sense away, I did an event at a convention in Minneapolis a couple years ago where everyone came into a room and we all sat together as it got darker and darker and darker. And it was called The Art of Darkness. And there were also masks if people wanted to use masks to make it even darker still. And it was a really interesting experiment and a great experience with everybody was there to play, and we had a good time. But as it grew darker and darker, some people, you know, and people had been told if you're uncomfortable with, you know, this is not the thing for you because it is going to get darker in here. And everybody stayed, and we had, afterwards, we just all hung out and talked about what did it mean. I mean, literally, like when you're in a power failure, we don't say the electricity went out. We say the power went out. I lost power, because being in the dark makes you powerless, right, in a lot of ways. You can't do the things that you would ordinarily do. You can't see the things that are around you. So it's an extremely potent fear, and I think we all have it a little bit, whether we admit it or not. I think we're all scared of the dark.
Oh yeah. I mean, seriously, I have been in power outages, and, you know, I know my home like the back of my hand. I can walk it in the dark, but the problem is that I will have like this feeling like somebody's behind me.
Right.
You know, looking over my shoulder, and it just drives me nuts. It'll be just this unbelievable feeling like something's behind me, and it's just, ugh.
Yeah, it's not good. It's definitely not good.
Yeah. Yeah. Luckily now I have a phone that has a light app on it, so I don't have to worry about that for a while.
You will never be caught in the dark again.
It pretty
Do
much.
we have any more fun hole questions that we want to talk about the cipher, or anything like that?
I wanted to ask you what contemporary horror writers or novels that you found not just enjoyable, but you thought fits the criteria of what the horror genre is?
Well, I don't have a real hard and fast definition of horror, what horror can be or could be. A writer whose work I think is wonderful, and her publisher would probably be surprised to hear it described as horror, is a woman named Maryse Meyer, Marryse Meyer. And she had a book of short fiction come out last year called Heartbreaker, and she has some other stuff in the pipeline for later this year and next. And her work is incredibly disturbing and beautiful to read. She's a beautiful writer, but her stories are very much weird fiction, very, very dark, very uncompromising, and she's probably the writer that I'm most excited about right now. I really like her stuff a lot.
Have you heard of or read the Necroscope books?
I know they exist, but I have not read them.
I highly recommend them. I just finished reading the second book, and I was very impressed.
There's a lot of good stuff out there, that's for sure.
Are there any other horror writers that you've enjoyed?
I have not been really reading a lot in the genre. The last few years have pretty much all been taken up with Christopher Marlowe and his plays and biographies about him to write Christopher Wilde. And
okay, well, what about before that?
I'm trying to think of the last thing that I read that I really loved. I read a lot of stuff, and a lot of what comes to me is stuff that other people have recommended, or stuff that I'm kind of a demanding reader, and if I don't love something, I won't finish it. I just think life is too short to. That's why when I found Maryse's stuff, I was really thrilled, because she was somebody whose work, and it isn't so much just, oh, I really like this story, or I really like this voice. It's somebody that you want to follow. When I did with Mike Kelly, the year's best weird fiction, there were, and I don't have the book in front of me, so I'm blocking on the table of contents, but there were a lot of writers in there whose work was new to me, and editing it with Mike was a real gift for that reason, because I got to find out about a bunch of writers who I didn't know, whose work I thought was really good. I think everything that he does with the year's best weird fiction, that whole series, because he has a different editor every year. Mike does all the heavy lifting, and then presents to whoever that year's editor is a bunch of stories to go through. And out of the thousands that he gets, you get kind of the cream of the crop to read through and make your selections from. And there were some really good writers in that series, and really interesting, surprising voices. So as kind of a peek into the dark, I think you can't go wrong with any of those books.
Cool. Okay. Eric, do you have any questions we haven't covered?
No, I'm pretty good.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys for having me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Oh, yes.
Thanks for coming on.
Pleasure.
We don't, as I said, we don't have guests often, and it's not easy to get guests, but when it happens, it's great.
Well, thanks again, and if we meet each other in a dark room, let's make sure that we look for the light switch.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay, thanks. All right, good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye. Okay.
Righty, Mr. Highland, you've actually, talking to her, I've gotten actually more and more intrigued about the cipher. Hopefully, eventually I'll be able to actually read it.
Yes, it is it's a very avant-garde style, but it's worth it.
Okay. Well, good.
And it's also in the first person. And I'm glad that it is, because the horror novels, they tend to be third person. And for this to be first person, it's actually refreshing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's just harder to do first person. Like myself, what I do is I do omni, which is, sometimes I'll, depending on the scene, I'll do either a first person or I'll do, do different people and shift. But yeah, because the problem is that if you do first person all the way through, and there's a situation where another person chiming in and seeing from their point of view would be better. It kind of limits you. So I try to look at it that way, because that's why a lot of people say that my writing is a lot more like watching a movie, is because I have different characters from different point of views in different sections. Alrighty, so Mr. Highland, are we ready for our music break?
Yeah, I think so.
Alrighty, so I will give us our music break, and when we get back, we will be doing our horror news and movie reviews. So enjoy that. Let's listen to some music.
I get up and nothing gets me down. Well, you've got it tough. I seem the toughest soul around. And I know, baby, just how you feel. You got to roll with the punches just to get to what's real. I can't just see me standing here. I've got my back against the record machine. I ain't the worst that you've seen. Don't you know what I mean? You might as well jump. Well, you might as well jump. Go ahead. How old are you? Who said that? Baby, how have you been? You say you don't know until you begin. But can't you see me standing here? I've got my back against the record machine. I
Thank you for calling USA Prime Credit. My name is Peggy.
You have problem?
Peggy? Okay, I've been waiting for 15 minutes for someone to
Pick up.
You're tenacious like bull. I like.
Please hold.
No, Peg.
So pretty.
Want better customer service? Switch to Discover, where you can talk to a real person in less than a minute. It pays to Discover.
Hello, my she-devils and demons. This is Nurse Hatchet, she-wolf of the Wolf Pack.
Alrighty, so that was our break and music. You there, Mr. Highland?
Sure am.
Alrighty. Yeah. Had to have that break, you know, had to refill my coffee and stuff.
That's good.
Alrighty, so now it is time. You know, Mr. Highland spends the entire month, you know, going over the internet, looking for that odd, that strange, that horror news.
Yes, I certainly do, and I have been doing that. So, this time, I don't have as much as last month, but it's 7 items. So, let's just get down to it. First up is John Keir Cross, The Other Passenger. This is his short story collection by Valancourt Press. There will be an audiobook, an Audible version, sometime in July. And there will also, from Valancourt Press, Frank De Felitta's Golgotha Falls. And there will also be an Audible version of that, but no date on that. On May 5th, Barbie Wilde's book, The Venus Complex, will be, an audiobook, but also an Audible version. The film The Soul Tangler, and I'm sure most people have never heard of that one. I certainly didn't until just a few days ago. This movie will be, well, it is on video, not either on DVD or Blu-ray, or I think both. On March 13th. That's yesterday. Also, The Sadist of Notre Dame will be on video April 3rd. Also, the true crime novel by Norman Mailer, The Executioner's Song. This will be on audio CD only on May 15th. Now, I've listened to this book a number of years ago, and it's quite good. So for anyone who's just seen the movie, now you'll be able to listen to this and compare the two. Okay, last, and certainly, did I give a date for the last one? Oh yeah, May 15th. And lastly, but certainly not least, and this is an update of a news item from last month. The Fright Night novel on the Amazon page is actually fake. Tom Holland is still writing the book as I speak. So there's no date for that, but hopefully it'll be done soon. And hopefully, I'm guessing later this year or maybe sometime early next year, the book will be ready to be purchased. Because I'm sure everyone is looking forward to that one. I know I am.
Oh, yeah, I am too.
Okay, that's all for my news. What do you have?
Alrighty, well, unfortunately, I don't have any regular horror news, except, of course, to remind people that my novel Symphony of Death Part 1 is finally out after all this time. You can find it on Amazon.com for print for $7.99, on ebook for $2.99. So definitely go out and check those out. You won't be disappointed. It's a thin book, but it's actually really good. Alrighty, so now what I have is our Screen Factory May releases. And I know of at least one of them here that you're going to be interested in, Mr. Highland.
Oh?
Oh, yes. But let's get to the first one here. First one is a Blu-ray edition of Unknown Origin. This is coming out May 22nd, and it's $23.99. Order from ScreenFactory.com and get it shipped 2 weeks early. So anyway, let's hear some stuff on this. Synopsis: a visual tour de force. Fast, taunt, darkly comic. Kevin Thomas, Los Angeles Times. When not mired in the corporate rat race, Wall Street executive Bart Hughes is king of his sleek Manhattan brownstone until he finds his castle under siege by the most determined home intruders. Forced to enter a rat race of an extremely different sort, Bart takes a stand with his survival and sanity at stake. Peter Weller, RoboCop, Sons of Anarchy, stars in Of Unknown Origin, an eerie, nerve-tingling suspense thriller directed by George P. Cosmatos, Tombstone Cobra, and the winner of the Paris International Film Festival Awards for Best Picture and Actor. Clever and compelling, the film draws you into a battle of wits, namely one with an intruder that's formidable, persistent, clever enough to lure Bart Weller along an unwitting path to self-destruction. In the battle of man versus beast, push comes to scream. Sounds interesting. I gather the intruders are rats. Alrighty. Next on the list is a film called The Vampire and the Ballerina. This one's coming out May 22nd for $22.99 Blu-ray. Synopsis: a fun, atmospheric Italian vampire piece from the Gothic horror golden age with enough sexy gimmicks to help it stand out in the mix. You know, this is a review, part of a review from At the Mansion of Madness. Shot in and around the grounds of an ancient Italian castle, this creepy and atmospheric thriller follows a company of beautiful ballerinas on tour. When they become stranded within its sinister stony walls, they have no idea that a horror legend 2,000 years old is about to come alive in the form of a group of vampires all thirsting for blood, especially their nefarious and brutal queen. Coupled with the smooth direction of Renato Pozzi, is the most fantastic cinematography that uses light and shadow effectively to make this film really come alive. That's from The Telltale Mind. And keep you firmly transfixed on the edge of your seat. Sounds interesting, huh, Mr. Hyland? Alrighty, next one is a classic that's coming on Blu-ray. Dr. Blood's Coffin. And let's see, that one is for $22.99 pre-order. Of course, you get it shipped 2 weeks early if you pre-order it. Synopsis: a monster created from the depths. After being dismissed from medical school because of his devious experiments, Dr. Peter Blood returns home to join his father's practice. He still believes he can create the perfect human, so he continues his experiments in an abandoned mine where he attempts to revive a rotting corpse. But Dr. Blood needs a living donor to create his perfect human, and soon people start disappearing from the nearby village. This shocker stars Kieran Moore from Days of the Triffids, Hazel Court, The Curse of Frankenstein, and Mask of the Red Death, and was directed by Sidney J. Fury, The Entity, and the Ipcris File. Alrighty, next Blu-ray release is Desolation. And Desolation comes out May 1st, and it's an 1897 Blu-ray, so nice price on it. Alrighty, so here we go. Tara waits in the woods, following her husband's death. Grieving widow Abby, Jamie Page, journeys into the forest. They put he loves to scatter his ashes. Accompanied by her teenage son, Toby, played by Toby Nichols, and her best friend, Jen, Alicia O'Shea. As they wander the wilderness and reminisce, they're struck by a rising feeling of dread. They are not alone. A mysterious, silent stranger in sunglasses, the hiker, is stalking their every move. Suddenly, they find themselves the hunted prey in a deranged killer's terrifying game. The nerve-shredding feature debut of Sam Payton will make you think twice before venturing into the woods. Alrighty, so next one coming out on Blu-ray is one of my favorite anthologies, The House That Dripped Blood. That one's coming out for $23.99. All right. So this Amicus production is one of the very best. The Bloody Pit of Horror.com. A real treat. The Terror Trap. A Scotland Yard inspector searches for a missing film star, leads him to a haunted house. The house sets the framework for 4 separate tales of terror written by the author of Psycho, Robert Bloch, and starring icons Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, and Ingrid Pitt. Also, John Pertwee is in that as well. All 4 stories center on the mysterious fate of tenants who have leased the mansion over the years. Yeah, that was a good one. I like that, especially the Vampire's Cape one with John Pertwee. Very good one.
Yeah,
now, here we go. Finally! I know Mr. Hyland's been waiting for this. This is the one that I figure that you're going to be all excited about. The It's Alive trilogy. It is being released on May 15th on Blu-ray. Price tag is $39.97, which isn't too bad. For 3 films on Blu-ray, not bad at all. And of course, with Shout Factory, you get it shipped 2 weeks early if you pre-order. So, very good one.
Can you imagine if there was a It's Alive puppet show?
Oh my God!
at conventions.
Oh my God! Synopsis: experience Larry Cohen's It's Alive trilogy like never before in high definition. It's born and it's alive, and murder is what it knows best. A proud couple bundle of joy is really a newborn terror in filmmaker Larry Cohen's cautionary cult hit that taps into environmental fears. The horror grows when multiple child monsters rampage in the first sequel, It Lives Again, as 2 brave parents try to stop them before they become bait for their spree. Now global mutants are rounded up and relocated to a far-flung island in It's Alive 3, Island of the Alive. Will a parent's great nightmare become the world's greatest fear? Find out if you dare. Alrighty, so, and actually, here's another one you might be interested in, Mr. Hyland, because it has one of your favorite actors in it.
Oh?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a film called Kaleidoscope, and it's coming out May 1st, and it's coming out for $18.97.
Who's in it?
Oh, who's the actor that I say?
Mm-hmm.
Toby Jones. A.K.A. Rupert Jones.
Oh, the European version of that famous writer who wrote In Cold Blood. Come on, help me out here. Truman Capote.
I have no idea.
He did a version.
Doctor Who, and he played Truman Capote.
Yeah.
That's all I know of him.
Yeah.
Oh, and he was also in Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Yes, I know who you mean.
Alrighty, synopsis. This intense, twisty thriller unfolds in the darkest corners of man's mind. Recently released from prison, mild-mannered Carl, Toby Jones, quietly attempts to move on with his life. Just as he embarks on his first date in 15 years, Carl's flesh start is shattered by the sudden appearance of his domineering mother, played by Anne Reed, whose presence awakens within him a deep-seated trauma. What unfolds is a brain-warped puzzle as reality, illusion, past and present collide and explode in violence. The debut feature from Rupert Jones is a provocative psychological mystery that asks, is it possible to escape our past? Alrighty, and they got bonus features with this one. The other ones they didn't have the features out. But it comes with documentary, The Making of Kaleidoscope, Working in the Studio, Keeping Up with the Joneses, and theatrical trailer. So a nice little piece for Toby and Rupert Jones, huh? I think
Yeah, I suppose.
Rupert, I believe, is Toby's brother.
Oh, okay.
And he's the director of this. So, anyways, yeah. So that's our Shout Factory releases for this month.
When you said,
it sounds like it's going to be an interesting month for releases, though.
Yes, when you said one of my favorite actors, I thought you were going to say someone like James Woods.
Nah.
Oh.
Nah.
You can't deny.
I know that you hold Toby Jones up to an iconic thing because he's such an incredible actor.
Well, I haven't seen all of his work.
Well, I mean, if I recall, hadn't you seen him as Truman Capote, though?
No.
Really? Oh, you missed out then.
I know.
Yeah, so you got to into the thing and find that Truman Capote film that he did. That was incredible.
I will.
Yeah, definitely.
But then again, I haven't seen everything that James Woods ever did.
No.
But you can't deny the power of James Woods.
Yeah.
Or the
Alrighty, so it is time for movie reviews. So go ahead there, Mr. Highland.
Yes. Okay. Now, these movies, I'm willing to bet not a lot of horror fans have seen, given their scarcity in America. But I'm sure once you know of the titles, you will hunt them down on the internet, as I did. So, but the first one is, I know, available in Europe and under an Arrow release, I believe. It is called The Shout, and it stars Alan Bates and John Hurt. Basically, it's about this guy. He's a wanderer, and he contacts John Hurt's character, who is a musician. He's mostly a organ player for a church, and Alan Bates' character, he very slowly takes over John Hurt's life. He performs very subtle spells on him and his wife, played by Susanna York. And he comes to their house one day, and all of a sudden he says that he doesn't need a lot of food to survive. He hasn't eaten in 2 days. He was living in the Australian outback for 18 years. He had a wife there. He had children, but he killed them. He does this water glass trick where he's rubbing the top edge of the glass, and he makes it sound so sharp that the wife's wine glass breaks. And then later on, he tells John Hurt that he can do this shout that kills everything around him. And, of course, John Hurt doesn't believe him. So, Alan Bates' character has to prove it. So what they do is they go out to the ocean where they're sure they're far enough from everything that no one will get killed. And John Hurt makes sure his ears are plugged sufficiently, and so Alan Bates does this shout, and I guess they don't realize that there's some birds and some sheep nearby. They drop to the ground and dead. And then very shortly, you see this human body on the beach, far off. And that turns out to be someone who works at the church John Hurt's character works at.
Cool.
And then not long after that, towards the end, you see the Alan Bates character leave, and then you think, oh, he's gone, and so you see John Hurt and Susanna York take a bath together, and then all of a sudden, Alan Bates' character comes back. And he subtly says to John Hurt that, oh, I'm going to go upstairs with your wife. And basically acts like, oh, there's nothing you can do about it. And just pushes him out the door. So John Hurt runs back to the beach because beforehand Alan Bates tells him about spells that he was putting on people and how he did it, and so he was John Hurt's digging through the sand for these so-called bewitched rocks. So which one is it? Which one is it? He's digging through, and then finally he finds the right one, and so he's knocking the rock together to take away the spell that Alan Bates did. So finally he busts it open, and all of a sudden, while this is going on, the police come and they say, "Oh, we have a warrant for your arrest for your murdered children." So they take him away, and in the midst of all this, the main story appears to be a flashback to where there's a cricket match going on, and Alan Bates' character is sitting and kind of narrating this story here and there to a character played by Tim Curry.
Huh.
So the two of them are watching the cricket match, and all of a sudden it starts to rain, and he says, "Oh, you hear the rain and the thunder? That's what the shout is like, but at least I think he said like 10 times more so than that, or 100." And it's revealed that where they're watching the cricket match, it's an insane asylum.
Huh. Cool.
So there's really not much more to the story than that. I'm not going to spoil what happens at the end. As for a rating, I would give it a 3 out of 5.
Cool.
I was lucky to find this movie on the Daily Motion website. So anyone who is curious to see this movie, who cannot get a hold of this movie, can now do so. And same thing for my next movie, which I was very pleased to finally get a hold of this movie on this website. This is called Mr. Vampire. Now, this is a Chinese horror comedy. A lot of homage to here and there to Dracula. Really not much to say about this movie except, aside from there being vampires, how does it start off? It starts off with a bunch of wooden, irregularly shaped coffins. Someone comes out of the coffin, you think they're the vampire, but no, they're just wearing fake vampire teeth. And these corpses that come out of the, no, actually, they're just standing around with bewitched spells written on paper pasted to their foreheads. They get knocked away, and all they do is just hop around, which is really goofy. And not long after that, there's a coffin that's buried on this mountain vertically, and so it's dug up. They find that there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with the body, and so it's taken out and it's taken back to these people, and not long after that, it escapes, and you see that, that's the real vampire. So it starts attacking people. There's another attack that someone gets blamed for, and they get jailed, and that body comes alive in the middle of the night and is dispatched, and they have an idea on how to take out the main vampire, the Mr. Vampire, and in all the midst of this, there's this ghost-like creature who supposedly is a vampire, but it's not really explained if she is or not, and she's bewitching this one guy, and his master is following him to see if he's what's going on, and he discovers she's not human, she's some kind of a demon or something. So there's a huge fight there, and she gets away, and it all leads to this climax at their house. And then the main vampire comes by, and there's this huge, massive fight, and I was impressed with the big finish. And I was not only impressed with the makeup of the vampire. I don't know who did that, but I thought it was pretty good. Cool. And they managed to at least supposedly kill the vampire by setting it on fire. As for a rating, I would give it a 2.5. The parts that were supposed to be funny, I found they were too silly for me.
Yeah, understood. I mean, you know, the Asian thing, they, you know, sometimes when they act, you know, and do comedic stuff, they really overdo it. I mean, it's like overwhelmingly strong.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth a look.
Oh, definitely. I've heard about Mr. Vampire. It's you know, supposedly if you're into Asian horror and Asian vampire films, you know, it's one to actually see. I watched a few of them, and yeah, I understand. You know, like the hopping corpses and stuff. That's actually part of Asian culture. That a corpse, when it's in a, you know, when a person dies in a wrong area, they have like this mystical person who guides them back to their home village, and they hop. The body actually hops. And the way that they have the ideas of vampires is that vampires are advanced zombies, that the dead start out as zombies and then they turn into vampires. And vampires have, you know, the Asian vampires have a lot more powers than, you know, their Western counterparts. Interesting, though, the differences, of course. Alrighty, so you got another review there, Mr. Highland, or
no? That's it. That's it.
Oh, okay. Alrighty, so now it is time for my review. And mine is the first one that I'm going to start out with is a Spanish film, I believe 1993. It is called Dark Waters. And it's directed by Mariano Baino, and he also wrote it with a gentleman named Andrew M. Bark. And the story is about this woman who her father has just died, and she's dealing with his estate. And she travels to the island where her father had met her mother. And on this island is a mission that, you know, has an order of nuns there, and her father has been paying the order money on a yearly basis to keep it going. And so she gets to the island to talk to the Reverend Mother, and she's stuck there. And first thing they do is they take all of her possessions, and you know she's stuck wearing kind of like this. I don't know. It's not really a dress. It's just this. It's like almost like a blanket type thing around her, because you know they can't have the stuff from the outside world there, and she's stuck at the mission for a week. She can't send out any mail because the mail goes out only on a weekly basis when the boat comes. So she's stuck there, and weird things start happening, and she keeps seeing these visions of a little girl, and she sees a vision of this kind of round thing with a demon face on it. And, you know, she ends up going into the catacombs of the mission, and she finds sculptures of this demon face all over it. And eventually, you know, there's this legend that this band of nuns is actually guarding a demon. And she finds out that there's a connection between her and her father and her mother and the demon. I'm not going to give away anything on that because I know, you know, people will want to see this film. This film is very interesting. It's slow, incredibly slow, let's put it that way. Not a lot happens until the end, and when the demon is finally shown, it's typical 1993 Spanish style monster. Literally, they use a hand puppet for the monster's head. Anyways, one thing I did like about it was the atmosphere. They did a fantastic job on the atmosphere of it. There's this thing with water, and you know, the walls are just dripping with water and stuff, and there's a lot to deal with water and that. This film has sort of a Lovecraftian feel to it. So if you liked films like, you know, if you liked, you know, Innsmouth and, you know, some of the Lovecraft stuff, you'll find this interesting. I pretty much give this one a 3.5 because the slowness of it just it takes away, but it doesn't ruin the film. But it's just very hard, you know, it's hard, you know, it would be hard for a modern audience to really watch because it's slow. Alrighty, next one is a film that I just recently saw. It's a 2018 horror film, and it's called Asylum of Fear. And this one is interesting. It's about a paranormal team that goes into this mental institution. They bring a skeptical reporter with them, and as they are doing their investigation, they discover horrifying clues about a violent massacre caused by an insane doctor that was there in the 1960s. And, you know, lots of ghostly stuff happened. The one thing that I liked about this film was the way that they handled the paranormal team and the investigation. It was very much like the way a real paranormal team would have handled it. It wasn't the ultra clicky, we're gonna have all this stuff, especially since I know a little bit about this production, and the fact is they used real ghost hunting equipment, and they went through a hell of a lot of trouble with this, because the production was supposed to have a $100,000 budget, but the people who were investing pulled out on them. So the production crew had to put their own money into this, and they had to work for free. And what they ended up having to do is they had to get really creative, and they turned a old warehouse into the mental institution. There was actually one scene in the morgue where they actually used a real morgue. And the thing is that they were always afraid that at any second a real body was going to be put in, and they weren't going to be able to finish shooting. But I have to give these people points for doing the, getting this film done and doing as good a job as that they did on it. The weak point of this film is the ending, because they ran out of money, and the ending, it's just like all of a sudden it just stops and they go to the end credits, and it's like, oh God. So one person's storyline is actually cut short. You don't know if this person survives, or they're dead, or if they're possessed, or what's going on with it. So for Asylum of Fear, I'll give it a 3-pack on it, because these guys, they did a good job. It's just that this isn't the perfect film. It had a lot of potential. What they were doing was really good, but and I've seen a few films like this that the backers have pulled out, and the production crews have had to finish it on their own. So, what can you do? The director on this is Craig Deering, and he was also the screenwriter with his wife, Karen Deering. And anyways, as I said, I give this a 3.0 on it. I recommend people check it out, because it's not a bad film. Alrighty, Mr. Hyland, that's it for me. So, what do you say we close out this session of Full Spectrum Horror?
Okay.
Alrighty, so any last words there? I mean, would you like to thank your guest for showing up? And
yes, I'd like to thank my guest. Certainly a pleasure. And I also like to thank our listeners. And tune in next time.
Alrighty, so turn in next time for our next Full Spectrum Horror. I gather we're going to have a movie next time.
Mm-hmm.
And things will be back to normal where we'll be doing the reviews and stuff at the beginning of the show again. Alrighty, so anyways, keep America strong, watch horror films, and catch you next month.
The love that you bring me along. The pain that you gives me a home. Do you wanna stay by my side? Do you want me to turn and hide? We are disappearing inside, seeing pictures of our goodbyes. We believe that our love will survive the pain that you bring. Brings me all alone. Do you love me? Do you hate me? Do you wanna believe me? Do you think that you don't need me? Do you wanna deceive me? I can't think that it's all over. Don't wanna forget. I can't live this disappointment down. I wanna repress your goodbye, goodbye. The design, we brought them all. The dreams when you see that goodbyes aren't for long. Please follow me to the borders of destiny. I don't wanna break from your side. The falling ground screams goodbye. Do you love me? Do you hate me? Do you wanna believe me? Do you think that you don't need me? Do you wanna deceive me? I can't think that it's all over. Don't wanna forget. I can't live this disappointment down. I wanna repress your goodbye, goodbye. The design, we brought them all. The dreams when you see that goodbyes aren't for long. Please follow me to the borders of destiny. I don't wanna break from your side. The falling ground screams goodbye. Please follow me to the borders of destiny. I don't wanna break from your side. The falling ground screams goodbye, goodbye. The design, we broke the mold. The dreams when you see that goodbye soon for long.
The internet.